Hi there, Rafael here. Welcome to this video about Business Central Warehouse Management System. In this video, we will look at the setup required in Business Central to ship and receive goods depending on the business processes in your organization. Today, we will look at the three levels of complexity that you can have in Business Central that are linked to how your organization receives and ships goods. So let's look at my sandbox and let's get started. So the first thing we're going to look at is the location. Locations in Business Central are almost always a physical place where you store goods. So a location, generally speaking, is a warehouse. However, you can have more than one location for the same warehouse. Sometimes you might want to have virtual locations. For example, I've got a consignment customer here location, which is a location that doesn't really exist, but it's where I store goods on consignment. I also have in-transit locations that in my sandbox are named outsourced logistics and own logistics that are used for goods in transit. And this is required because locations, and I'm going to open one, locations are also buckets where you have your inventory in Business Central. So you can see that my location on logistics is linked to a specific inventory account, which is a balance sheet account in my company's chart of accounts, where I will post the inventory value when I receive goods in this particular location, and each location code is linked to a particular inventory posting group, because in Business Central I can have items linked to different inventory posting groups, so that I can post the value of this inventory when I receive it, when I ship it. I can debit this account when I receive goods. I can credit this account where I ship goods. And so this is essentially the balance sheet element, the accounting side of inventory movements. So logistics companies where you have your goods in transit are also locations. So physical, virtual, but also used for differentiating inventory accounts in your balance sheet. But something that we will discuss in another video about inventory costing and posting. So let's go back to the main topic of this video, which is warehouse setup, depending on how you move your goods in Business Central, right? So the simplest way of moving goods in Business Central let me find one location which is not set up with anything here. There we go, my main warehouse. The easiest way, the simplest way to move goods in Business Central without any functionality about warehouse is where your location is set up with no option enabled in the warehouse tab. With the location set up in this manner, you can receive and ship items and from and to this location without using any warehouse activity. So a typical example, I will have a sales order and a sales order for a specific location main. Let me see if I got anything here, or maybe I don't. So let's create a new one. I can create a sales order for this company, for this customer, select an item and choose the location main, right? And I'm going to select one, right? And if I have inventory of this item here, actually I do have inventory here, which is good. I can simply release this order, and when I choose post, I can choose to ship an invoice in one go. I can ship now an invoice later, but the system will not ask me to perform any kind of warehouse activity. You can see the order has been shipped, and in one click, and you can see quantity shipped 1. I can even look at my shipment and, let's say, print this document as a delivery note right here. So we shipped an item from the main location without any additional step from the order to the shipment. And this is the level 0, let's say. This is the setup required if you don't use any warehouse activity at all, right? Let's look at my location again. Now we enter the first level of warehouse management system, where, let's see, I got a test location here. I don't want to require pick and put away. This is me. There we go. Bin mandatory enabled. There we go. So with this setup, the location exists and requires a bin or bins. Bin is mandatory. With this setup, even though I've got no warehouse activities enabled, I can still ship an order without any warehouse activity and receive it. However, once we enable bin mandatory, we need to use bins, which is the equivalent of a shelf. Let's say, imagine a small warehouse where your items are stored through a racking system, or maybe just shelves, right? So the bin is the smallest storage unit that you have in your warehouse, right? And therefore in your location. So a typical bin should be numbered something like this, right? Or be something more sophisticated if you want to do B01A, for example, B01B, and so on, right? A like B02B, and so on. So 1 can be the aisle, the A and B can be the aisle, the number should really represent the rack, and the last letter maybe can be like the floor level. Like, so B01A should be aisle B, 01 is rack number 1, and letter B is the second floor. A is the ground level, B is the second, and C of course is the top level, right? So very simple. This setup enables the concept of warehouse ledger entries, and it's the simplest way to is level 1 of complexity, let's say, but it allows you to use some of the functionalities that comes with the WMS system, the WMS module. Because we only have bins here, the only thing that we have available now is the bin content, right? So let me show you how it works. I'm going to create a purchase order now for my location test. I'm going to choose a vendor. I choose this one, and I'm going to receive my desk, and I'm not going to choose West. I'm going to choose test, no WMS, no warehouse management, even though we know that there are. Now we're going to use level 1 of warehouse management system in Business Central. I'm going to receive 2 here. Now, if you got the purchase order page without any personalization, you will not see the field that we need, right? Because if I try to receive this order, the system will likely tell me that I got an error. In fact, this is what I got. See, the bin does not exist. In all fairness, this is not really helpful. It tells me that the bin does not exist. Identification fields are location code and code blank. The code is the bin code, which is blank, and the bin blank doesn't exist. Now, unfortunately, this is Business Central error message that sometimes can be a bit counterintuitive. Now, I know that my problem here, my error, is about here. Is about I got the context here, which is really helpful now, which is the first line of my purchase order. If I click here, I can actually see it, right? And which again, if I go back, is this line here. The bin does not exist. Where is the bin in my page? I can't see it because by default it's not enabled. So what I need to do here, I need to go and use personalize, and I can add the field. I need to go and click in my sub page here where I got the purchase lines and find my bin code. There we go. So I'm going to drag and drop my bin code next to location. And here I can see that bin code is empty. And the system is throwing an error because location code is now been mandatory, and therefore to receive this item here I need to choose a bin. Now if I click here I can choose the drop down option to choose one of the bins that I just created for this location. An interesting feature, the system tells me which one is empty, but it's also tells me which one is dedicated, which is a bin dedicated to a particular demand, a particular stock. We will look at that later. And of course a description. If I want to add a description here, I can have something like aisle A rack 1, or this can be a naming convention. B01 can be room B, for example, level B, shelf 01, depending on how you arrange your warehouse. Another interesting feature is that I don't have to choose this bin every time I create an order. I can default this item or more than one item to a certain bin, so that the system will automatically tell so populate this one for me, which of course I can change it here, right, if I want to. That's another functionality enabled with this really basic setup. So now that I got a bin code on my purchase line, I can post it, and I want to receive it only. I will receive a vendor invoice later. Okay. Now account is missing because I need to set up the posting group. So inventory posting setup here. Remember I told you earlier, inventory posting setup. I told you earlier that the location it's also used by the system to determine which inventory account is used when we receive it. So in my test no warehouse, resale is empty. You can see. So I'm going to just use this suggest account, so the system will use the same account for this combination of location and inventory posting group. Now that the system knows where to debit the inventory value, I can receive it, right? And now here I got my item received in 802. I want to show you now an interesting thing that just happened. We don't see it immediately, but if you look at the receipt and I look at the entries, I can see the entries that the system generated when I received this order. And of course it created a posted purchase receipt, which is the document that we're looking at here. There is an item ledger entry, which is the equivalent to my inventory subledger, and my inventory subledger shows +2 in this location. Nothing strange here. The value entries, so this is the value of the inventory, that when I will post my inventory to my general ledger, I will get this one, cost per unit multiplied by 2. But at the same time, the system created this interesting line here, which is a warehouse entry. And this is a warehouse subledger, which is surprisingly not linked to the inventory ledger, but these are always in sync. The system uses logic to store to link, let's say, the warehouse entries, to keep the warehouse entries and the item ledger entries in sync. But these are not automatically linked, and I'll show you why and how this works when we cover the full WMS module, when we go deep into the architecture of the warehouse management system. So the fact that I used a bin here, it's not just for operational purposes. It's not just because I want another bin, another code, let's say I want the location and the code. Of course there is a benefit because my warehouse team now can find the items in the warehouse because the bin code is always linked to this movement. But I can now move my item in the warehouse and get real-time visibility of where my items are, right? So if I look at my items now in the warehouse using bins, so if I look at my items desk here and I look at this sub page, which is reports, I believe, inventory. Let me see. No, it should be in warehouse. Related. Yeah, there we go. Related warehouse. I can see a bin content. And bin content shows me, this is a nice matrix, it's filtered by location Glasgow for this item. I don't want to see the location Glasgow. I want to see the location test, which I just used. And you can see that the system now tells me that the quantity of 2 pieces of this item is now stored in this bin. It tells me the quantity here, and the quantity base is 2. This is a field that I can use to drill down, and here I can see my warehouse entry, which is the same warehouse entry that we found before when we queried the purchase receipt. So an additional ledger is now switched on for this location, which does not require any warehouse activity, but the system keeps a separate ledger where inventory, even better, again, physical inventory, because we're talking about warehouse lines, so this is a physical inventory ledger that I can use to query the system, find items, move items. The interesting part is that every time I create an internal movement and I move item between the different bins in the same location, I don't move inventory. I don't debit and credit inventory stock. I don't create items ledgers, inventory subledgers. I only use the warehouse ledger. That has no impact on the company books, which keeps the system light and fast and allows the warehouse team to work and move items where they want without slowing down the core application. And this is the level 0 and level 1 of the warehouse module in Business Central. In the next video, we will look at level 2 and level 3 before we move to the full WMS, where we will deep dive into all the functionalities that a proper WMS system offers that are part of Business Central. I'll see you in the next video.